We're gonna try this one. Welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking around for this amazing Q&A. I have some amazing talent in here, and I have a wonderful conversation that we're going to have shortly. My name is Farrington. We are celebrating the 36th annual Out on Film Festival, showcasing just talent, voices, and LGBTQ plus stories just all over the globe here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm guided and joined here by Mark Thompson, the director of this amazing documentary that we just watched. Mark, if you want to say hi, just introduce yourself. I'd love to get started on a couple questions as well.
Hey, good. I don't know if it's a good day, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is. But happy to be here, and thank you for honoring our documentary as part of Out on Film.
Oh, no, I thank you so much for sharing. I think watching this film and thinking about our theme this year, which is Defiantly Queer, I thought of how resilient I think the community and impactful I thought the community and the folks were in this film. As far as queer defiance in Memphis, I wanted to probably ask about your personal takes to Memphis, what guided you to this documentary and provide such an outlook and such an important, I think, conversation to have when talking about equality in communities.
Well, that's a good question. I'm a longtime Memphian, born and raised. Have lived in Dallas and Seattle briefly, but so have always been part of the Memphis community. And at heart, we're storytellers, and we had the opportunity to help share the story of the LGBTQ plus community here in Memphis through these a series of interviews, and we're just blown away at how open and honest our interviewees were and willing to share their stories. And this began as part of an exhibit for a museum documentary. And as soon as we started these interviews, I thought, wow, this is a story that needs to be shared because of the power of the interviews and of the stories that we were hearing. It was just incredible.
No, absolutely. Like that's such a unique tie to it. The fact that an exhibit was able to bring folks from Memphis all over to kind of see themselves, see the parts of history kind of being shared and publicly shown on a brighter scale. What was it like to see folks come and gravitate towards it, but also just having so many like important important add-ons to this conversation and important getting their story to you in addition to just the exhibit being that focal point?
Well, it was history setting in this community, and nothing like this exhibit, nothing like this documentary had ever been done in this community.
Wow.
We found a lot of emotion from our participants. We held a grand opening just for friends and family of the participants, and it was an emotional evening to see and feel that this community was being honored with a historical exhibit, a historically very ignored community, if you will, ignored and abused. And it was to me one of the highlights of anything that I've done in years, to be a part of helping create their story and honoring their history.
Wow, no, it's impactful beyond measure, Mark. Like I said, the subjects of this documentary, there were so many folks who came to you to share and to add on and to proliferate what it meant for them being in Memphis, seeing themselves represented in this exhibit. I wanted to ask just about kind of like your net process. I'm assuring that of course folks gravitate towards you, but there was something dynamic in I think each of the voices that were represented in the film. I want to ask how that was like finding those diverse voices and finding like just how to accurately just get their voices heard and impacted into this conversation.
Well, we have approached many members of the LGBTQ plus community about being involved. We needed their involvement for the exhibits themselves, for some of the memorabilia, for the stories. And really it was the group that was represented in the documentary was curated by the community themselves.
Nice.
Many of the people were, well, have you talked to so-and-so? That's who you need to be a part of this.
Nice.
He's owned gay clubs all his life. you need his story. The young lady that owns Drew's, Tammy, that's a community centerpiece, and we had more fun with her. Of course, she was on our radar already, but so many people weren't. So it was just the words. It was fun. It was interesting. It was just great to engage these people in the community and be able to help tell their story, and them be so willing to share that story was just incredible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the visibility in this film does wonders. I think another, I know you asked, of course, the subjects, like what it is about the documentary they would love to kind of proliferate and take away from. And I just felt like allowing them to have that space, allowing them to have that moment of recognition for themselves and to account like, this is my lived experience. This is what I had. One of the biggest focal points for me was one of the subjects in the documentary was talking about her sister and just how from just a young age, everyone knew her sister was trans and that she'd grown up with like family members and people acknowledging that, her sister is visible, and just how kind of mind-boggling that is as we continue to kind of hear this narrative of like, grooming and this narrative of like, folks being converted to trans. It's like, no, as early back, we can find voices and find visibility, specifically in Memphis at that, where folks were queer, living in their truth, had communities of women, trans women living in their truths. So that's just another very moving part to me. In that perspective, as far as sharing, and just to you, as far as like just in the scope of like all these conversations and stories, was there anything super impactful from the History and Impact Museum that you want to showcase about Memphis, wanted to maybe spotlight about Memphis? I know there were some organizations tied to the museum as well that were doing some great stuff, but yeah, I wanted to ask just any kind of impactful moments within this search for you.
It would be hard to pick out one because there were so many moments when we were doing those interviews that people were, just opening up their souls, opening up their story to be, and totally honest, brutally honest. And some of the stories were, as you mentioned, positive stories of acceptance, but there were also stories that were not so positive of a struggle with that community and life. And those are just, heart-wrenching sometimes when you're hearing that and you feel the pain of that person. It's hard not to get emotional, even when you're trying to, there were a couple couple of interviews we ended up, I was like, I'm trying to run a camera and you're making me cry. Stop. I mean, thank you for sharing, but I'm trying to keep this steady here.
No, that's so real. And I think this documentary also did a good job of just including those stories and letting those conversations and moments be heard. But on top of just expanding that, we are deeper than the narratives that of struggle that, especially in the Deep South, that I think people are so nuanced to, of homophobia, of no one being out and proud, of having to move and transocean over to like LA or New York or these other coasts to feel accepted. I feel like you did a good job of showing folks here in Memphis, or there in Memphis, I'm sorry, just being able to be them authentic selves and provide that insight on what their experiences were like. So I think in a number of ways, it's super impactful. In a number of ways, how the conversation kind of exploded naturally from the focal point, again, is representation, as simple as just seeing it in a museum, which like you said, they'd never seen before. So there's just a lot there. So my final question is just as far as like defiantly queer, and how the LGBTQ community in Memphis and in the South kind of navigates these very complex issues and the complex identity of being heard and not heard, and like being visible and living with themselves and not maybe having as much access or acceptability. What kind of message or hope do you want to have for Memphis as it relates to just queer resilience and being in the South?
I'd like to hope that the community, the Memphis community, the South, will just continue to accept people for who they are. Accept, and one way to do that is to engage. It's hard to accept someone that you don't understand and you've never engaged with, that you've never had to try hold a conversation with. and understand where they're coming from. And so many people are scared of things they don't understand. Where is if you take the time to engage and have a conversation about it, it humanizes everyone involved. And I think it's an opportunity that Memphis and the South in particular has an opportunity to move forward with more engagement of communities that aren't like you.
Mm.
And this was just a great opportunity for us to grow and learn. And me, I greatly enjoyed the whole process, the whole project.
No, absolutely, Mark. Like you said, it starts with just a conversation, just putting yourself in a space with folks who you might not know about, and just having that start there. I think there's something organic that comes from just being in a place and being in a space and being in a heart to understand and open and listen. So there's a lot to listen to here. Of course, with this documentary, there was a lot of stories that I felt like touched on the South and queer experiences in the South, so deep and so true. So I thank you, Mark, of course, for providing this and sharing this. If you all are watching this, love this documentary as much as I did, feel free to vote for it. Memphis Proud will be streaming all the way through October, and possibly some encores, October 1st, and possibly some encores after that. But all to say, do vote, share this film. It is virtually screening, so you have the ability to share it with your friends and family, and encourage people to check this out as well on our stream. Mark, I thank you all so much. What's next for you, Mark? What's in the workings for you?
Well, we're working on a couple of other long form documentaries. We're working on actually a history of that museum that's going to be aired on PBS.
Nice, nice.
Museum has quite an interesting history. Was started by the gentleman who started the Piggly Wiggly chain.
Okay.
He built that as his home. The building, never lived in it because he went bankrupt in the 30s, and it became the local museum.
Wow. That's a story.
It's quite a story.
Especially here in the South. I'm like, a Piggly Wiggly, of course we know Piggly Wiggly.
Right.
And that being the museum that's exciting. I look forward to that, Mark. We look forward to hearing about the Memphis Museum. We are sending love and praises to our folks and all of our queer family out in Memphis as well. Thank you all so much for joining. And I think we'll conclude at that.
Thanks, Farrington.
Alrighty, cheers.